We are joined by the voice of TCU Athletics, Brian Estridge. He's got a game tonight at the Big 12 baseball tournament, but he joins us on 365 Sports. And Brian, thank you very much for your time with Paul Craig, Smokey as well. So in your opinion, and we'll get to baseball, but in your opinion, how would you summarize what we've had Sonny on, we've had others on from TCU, but how would you summarize what they got done for the most part?
You know what I think, and it's funny. By the way, I was at the Charles Schwab Challenge today, the
Colonial, all right.
And, yeah, of course. And got hit up a bunch with that same question, as a matter of fact, Dave. And I tell you, the thing that I kept saying was under the radar. You know, that I really think that this team and this roster is still sort of living under the radar, and I think that's a good thing. I sense, and I don't say this just because of calling the games, I sense an air of confidence about this group. I see how they've gotten along in the spring and in the summer, and it hasn't been a mass exodus. It hasn't been, a mass influx of new faces. It wasn't living and dying by the portal. It was sort of, okay, a refocus, a re-energize, but also I think it was a case of, we were able to plug some holes according to them. And so I think there's a level of confidence leading into this thing that if you're a TCU fan, it should give you some hope.
Brian,
by the way, David, would you, after talking to all the folks, did you kind of get that same answer from them? I'm curious.
Yeah, I did. I think that they feel like there's a calm confidence, quiet confidence, not too much that's out there about, like promoting themselves, but they feel really good about what they filled in the offseason and also those coming through the system, which we don't see that as much anymore because of the portal. And, when you got a quarterback like Josh Hoover running the ship who has a chance to be an NFL player, I think that helps too.
Well, and David, you and I have a common mentor who told us every day it's about the damn quarterback.
Yes.
And it's always about the quarterback.
Yeah.
And if you got a guy like Josh Hoover that gives you a chance, who's committed to the program, who, as you well know, and folks didn't want to talk about it at TCU, but I thought they should have, was being courted by other schools with big dollars and he elected to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a little bit about the roster that he knows that he's going to be dealing with and the talent that he's got coming back, and a little bit about this coaching staff that he works with.
Brian, I've thought about that a lot with Josh Hoover in Tennessee and seeing what was going on there. I'm sure there's a lot of people across SEC country that I cannot believe that he wouldn't do it. Right? Oh, how could you stay at TCU and not go to Tennessee? I think, the money I don't think would have been life-changingly different because he's probably getting a nice little chunk at TCU being at the level that he is.
Well,
and questions are less.
He's making David Smoke money here now.
Well, see, there we go.
So he's doing okay at TCU.
So do you go to Tennessee and then you walk into Knoxville after spring's already over, going into the fall, not having to really learn a new offense because it's essentially the same, but now the whole city of Knoxville is like, hey, get us back to the playoff. You're help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. I don't know if that's something I would want to walk into given what and how it went down in Knoxville.
I've gotten a lot of questions as to where people can find the best supplements.
And that's why we have the Swell Score, because we have created this platform where our team of researchers and doctors have come together to bring top-notch quality supplements and information.
We make sure that if we are recommending a product, that it hasn't been reviewed by the same company that is producing that product.
Now we have a resource that we can do that.
Yeah, and not knowing the roster, they're a talented team. You could see what they had last year, but the locker room. Mm-hmm. You know the kind of guys that you're dealing with. You know the players that you got on your roster, and so I think that goes a long way in making that decision as well. Plus, you've eaten at Calhoun's in Knoxville, and you've eaten at Railhead in Fort Worth. Where would you rather eat barbecue? It's a no-brainer. So you got to find the right things, man, that you got to be proud of.
Brian, Josh Hoover is obviously the headliner. Who are the other guys that maybe are not being talked about or should be talked about more than they are right now, in your opinion, as far as making an impact next season?
Yeah, keep an eye on Major Everhart. I think he's a guy on offense. He's going to be a playmaker, a difference maker, a guy that can really kind of create some stuff for you. I think he's a guy that, they want to get him the football. I think they want to see what he can do in the open. I think there's a couple of guys like that, to be honest with you. They just want to see sort of season, and guys that you want to see really sort of propel themselves to the next level. And I think you're going to see that on really both sides of the ball too, guys. I mean. You got a couple of linebackers that nobody even knows about that I think they're going to be that have the potential to be pretty special players here. They got better at defensive line, So I think you got a couple of different areas to where this team is actually going to look a little bit different. The thing that stands out to me is they are, this is a word that no one has ever used to describe me, but I think it's a really good compliment. This is a lean team. They're not fat. They're taller. They're leaner, but I don't mean that they won't be able to handle the battle and don't have the strength, because they do. It's just this is a team that's in really, really good shape. When I walk out there and watch them, I'm like, these guys. I mean, there is a difference with this group than last year.
Well, now that Spencer Drango, Bryce Petty, Seth Russell, Jared Stidham, and everybody else has joined the TCU coaching staff.
That's right.
Do you have to sometimes, even though Kendall's been there for a while, Kaz has been there for a while, that you still have to double take who's walking around that facility?
I tell you, it is early on. I wouldn't be lying to you, Smokey, if I said it wasn't strange at first. It was. But because, if you're at TCU, you'd been indoctrinated into this, us versus them mentality. And once you got to know these guys, and once you got to see how they take care of their players and how the players like them, and then really just what kind of quality men and coaches they are, you kind of get past all that. J-Mo and I talk about that all the time. It's like the two rosters have been split as far as coaches are concerned. You got a couple of TCU guys, at Baylor now. On the right, who are really good dudes, who are really good coaches, and now you got the same thing happening here at TCU with Baylor guys here in Fort Worth. I mean, you sort of get past all that and let it prove itself out on the field. And I think last year, really for both teams, both sets of coaches who flip flop proved that they were doing what's best for their program. I mean, if you're making that kind of money, I think you work your tail off no matter who you're working for. Right?
Paul Gonzalez had been at TCU back during the Patterson years. A hell of a pickup for Dave Aranda. They needed that as an addition with Palage in the secondary. How good was he at TCU? And also finding the diamonds in the rough in the secondary, which TCU is so good at.
Phenomenal. I'm telling you, you're talking about, this dude is a great coach and a better man, great husband and father. I love the guy. Was a great college baseball player. He approaches the game a little differently, and I love that. He kind of approaches it with that baseball mentality, of putting that play behind you, putting that game behind you, putting that strike behind you that you took forward. He's one of those guys that makes it happen. I tell you, I think he's going to be a great addition for what they're doing down at Baylor.
Brian, why have they not been able to hit on the running back in the last couple of years?
I think it's been a couple of things, really. I mean, I think it's, you had some injuries for one thing. I think that has been one of the issues. You were rolling the dice at Trey Sanders from Alabama, who was, the number 4 running back in the country when he came out of high school, was going to be that guy for you after the auto injury, and he was never the same. I think those were sort of some of the things you had to overcome. And here's the other issue. I mean, you guys probably know, there's been 3 running back coaches here in the last 4 years. And I think that probably might have something to do with it too. So, I think they've kind of settled in, and I think that, I think there's an opportunity now. I think they feel real good about that room, that there are 4 or 5 guys that can be difference makers in the backfield. And here's the other thing. Just in being candid and being honest, the offensive line the last couple of years, it's back into last year, they got a lot better. But, 2 years ago, this offensive line wasn't very good. And Earl Campbell would have well, okay, maybe not Earl Campbell, but some guys would have struggled behind. And so I think that plays a lot into it, and we can't discount that. But I think this offensive line got better, especially toward the back half of the year last year, and they're more athletic this year than they've been maybe since Sonny got.
When Gary Patterson was basically on his way out at TCU, and then he goes to Texas, and of course he spent time on and off at Baylor.
Right.
I know that wasn't a very happy divorce, and I know a lot of feelings were hurt, and especially his, I would think. And now he's going into the TCU Athletics Hall of Fame. He earned that.
Yeah.
He deserves to be a part of that. Is that going to be a little bit awkward, or is everything going to be kumbaya?
I think it's getting close to being kumbaya. I don't know that it'll ever quite be totally there, but I do know that he and the new athletic director spent some quality time together a couple of weeks ago. And, I think they know that they need Gary Patterson in the fold. I mean, the guy won a lot of games here, made a lot of to him as well as it should be. So I think all of that plays into it. I mean, and let's face it, he's in Fort Worth. He's not going anywhere. So he doesn't need to be a pariah. He needs to be part of the program. And I think the powers that be sort of realize that.
You mentioned
Plus, here's the other thing, David. You got to change an administration. You got a new athletic director.
Mm-hmm.
You got a chancellor that is retiring. Both of those guys were part of the separation, if you will. So I think that maybe those wounds can heal a little bit with new faces.
Give us the real reason why TCU and SMU won't be playing too much further into the future.
They hate each other. I mean, other than that, I don't. I don't know. I think there's a lot of. I shouldn't say it that way. That's not very Christian-like from TCU, right? No, I think I just think it's two programs that are trying really hard to make sure they're in the mix when that next separation happens, and so there's real competition there. And so why put yourself in a situation to where one can use that against the other in that conversation? And so I think that kind of figures into it. I mean, me personally, I wish we played, but that I'm not making those decisions. I think it's a rivalry that needs to be played. But maybe in the future we'll see.
Scotty Scheffler you mentioned the Charles Schwab Challenge at the Colonial. It's an unbelievable. It's an old school course. It's an unbelievable setting. To have him there were a lot of guys, and that's home for him. Obviously, the Nelson and also Colonial from where he's from. To have him play, because a lot of guys might have backed out after winning the major. We've seen that before. What does it mean to the tournament that he's in it and that he's there?
Just basing it on the crowds that we saw here today, it means a lot. Big crowds today, huge gallery following Scheffler around as he teed off at about 12:35 this afternoon. I mean, it was good for the tournament that he was here. And you know what I really think made a difference for him and why he ended up sticking around is the fact that you had a Wish for Wings event going on yesterday, and he was part of that to a young girl who's just graduated from kindergarten, who's overcoming some heart ailments, and he was going to make sure that he was here for that. And to me, I think that says a lot about the kind of guy that he is. I mean, he could have easily pulled out, that. And for him to say, no, I committed to being there on this Wednesday for this young girl, and so I'm going to play in the tournament. I think that's pretty special.
TCU tonight against Houston in the nightcap, in the quarterfinals, so to speak.
Yep.
Your thoughts about the Frogs in baseball?
I think this is what they feel like is one of their more talented teams that they've ever had. And you got Kirk Saarloos now in charge of the pitching staff, which is probably his, what he needs to be doing. So you got to feel comfortable about that. The thing that people you can't lose sight of is this Houston game. You chalk that up as feeling like an automatic win for TCU, right? But Todd Whitting, the coach of the Cougars, used to be here at TCU, wanted the job when Kirk Saarloos got it. Don't think he ain't going to have those guys fired up about it. And when those two teams meet, you can just see it in Houston's eyes, man. They want to beat the Frogs, and Todd wants to beat the Frogs. So I'm looking forward to an emotional game here tonight. I'm looking forward to a great college baseball game. I think the Big 12 tournament, we need to see some really good baseball coming out of it, because I think we got to start regaining some respect across the country, really in every sport in this league. And I think especially in baseball, man. I think in baseball, this league doesn't need to slip. I mean, there's really no excuse for that, to be honest with you. The baseball's too good in this part of the world, and there's plenty of players to go around. And so I think it all starts this year with this Big 12 tournament.
We will see you in Frisco in a little while. Thank you for your time, Brian.
Love you guys. Thank you.
That Brian Estridge, voice of TCU.